Hello, everyone out there in the world. I don't know where this video is going to be seen, but I'm so grateful that I continue to discover great minds. I am Jewel Diamond Taylor. I host my interview series, and I have found a gem. I have found someone online. Yeah, social media sometimes can have a positive benefit. So the young man that you see with me on the screen today, I have not met him personally, but some time ago, I posted a message, a question on my Facebook page. And the question was, what was a pivotal, life-changing experience in your life? And I was amazed to hear from people that I don't usually hear from or connect with. I was amazed at the transparency. I was inspired by the stories of overcoming adversity. People were very transparent and vulnerable, and they were talking about how domestic violence or sexual violence, a stroke, losing their job, homelessness, losing a parent or a child like myself. All of these experiences were life-changing, but a common thread was that they were saying that even though it was a very crucial and painful time, it also was a turnaround. It helped them to appreciate life more. It transformed their thinking and their faith. And who you see with me today in my Zoom room is Coach Michael Taylor, who resides in Houston. Thank you for being with me today, Coach.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to have a positive conversation. I've been following your work, and like you said, online has some great benefits. I tuned into a couple of your videos. I say, now she thinks like I do. So this will be a great interview.
Yeah, and you know, when I was reading your bio, the description of what you do, what you offer, it was just so parallel. It's like we want to help people overcome adversity. And when we have our own stories and people can realize that none of us are immune from being dealt a hard card and there is no shame. I believe that we are as sick as our secrets. And for the males to participate in my poll, I was so excited because, as you probably know, my main demographics are women. And so to have men be bold and transparent and vulnerable and say, yes, I have been to hell and back and I'm still standing. So I'm going to let you share, Coach Michael. What was it that you shared on my Facebook page that really got my attention to say, oh, this brother, he wants to share, he wants to inspire others, he wants them to know, and there's no shame in his game. Would you share with my audience right now?
Well, let's go back to, I'm 23 years old and I'm living the American dream.
Okay.
Got the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids and all of that. And so by society standards, I was successful. Yeah. And within approximately a 6.5-year time frame, my American dream turned into the American nightmare as I went through a divorce, a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a deep, deep state of depression. I was homeless for 2 years living out of a car. So I've had my share of adversity. And one of the things that you just mentioned, that even though we get knocked down sometimes, if we're willing to look deeply enough, it is my belief that every adversity actually brings us a gift and a lesson.
Yes. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I wrote a book called Adversity is Your Greatest Ally: How to Use Life Challenges as Stepping Stones to Live the Life of Your Dreams. And it was my attempt to share, you know, the challenges that I went through and how I was able to overcome all those adversities, because I also believe that every human being has a divine purpose. And when we get in alignment with our purpose, then the universe will direct us to where we need to go and what we need to do. And as a result of all that adversity, what I discovered were a couple of gifts that I didn't even know I had.
And that's something. So we don't think like that when we're going through it, though, do we?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, gift? if somebody would have told me, man, there's gifts and lessons in it, I would say, man, you're crazy, because I was in a lot of pain. Yes. But what I discovered, though, is that my divorce was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because my divorce challenged me for the first time, number one, to stop looking outside of myself for answers.
Come on.
I had to begin going inside. I started looking inside, and that's what triggered my journey of transformation. That divorce, which woke me up to something bigger and better in life.
And you said the word better. And what my highest intention is that we learn to get better and not bitter. Because I know you're like me. We experience so many people that walk around feeling like a victim. Why does this happen to me? Carrying in their backpack the bitterness, the anger, the depression. And yes, we do get depressed. Yes, we do feel like it's the end of the world, but there is hope. And that's what I want to be able to uh, transfer to my audience, is that we're not denying that it's painful. We're not denying that there are times it's unfair. But the reality is we have a choice to make. And your story inspired me, because coming from a male point of view, as Black males, you're taught to be, hold your head up, stick your chin up, take it, don't say nothing, don't complain, and certainly don't cry, and certainly don't say you're depressed. That's relegated that's a female emotion. So for you to be able to share, I was in pain, and I want the women in my circle of life to understand that men hurt too, and when they hurt and they don't have the tools to navigate that valley, that wilderness, they will come out bitter. They can come out addicted. They can come out abusive. They can come out so wounded that they never trust again. So, Coach Michael, I see that you have 2 books, Shattering Negative Stereotypes.
Shattering Black Stereotypes.
Yeah. And then the other one is The Cure for Onliness. I love that. I love playing with words. So the idea of a cure for onliness, are you talking about being single? Or the only one in the room that is the Black person? Or the only one in the family that's, striking out and breaking the dysfunctional strongholds? Who is the only one?
Well, again, my specialty, my area of expertise is masculinity and manhood. That's what I focus my attention on. Again, I've written 8 total books. But this is how that book came about. There's a guy in California named Jewel Love, and he's a therapist. And he's a therapist for some of the wealthiest, most well-educated Black men in the country. He runs an organization called Black Executive Men. And again, he has, his clients include people that are working for Google and Apple, Silicon Valley executives. And he wrote a post on LinkedIn that said, the #1 mental health challenge for Black men was onliness. And when I read that, I never heard the term before, but I immediately resonated with it because it's something that I have experienced all of my life. And I define onliness as a feeling of separation and disconnection from others because of race. Okay? That's my definition. But the book really points to how we as Black men, a lot of times we're in situations where we're the only person of color. And how do we navigate those experiences? How do we navigate being that only person?
Yes.
And so, we hear the term code switching, where, some Black men say when they're at home, they're different from when they're at work. And so when I read that statement on LinkedIn, I said, you know what? There's a cure for onliness. And I know what the cure is because I've been writing about it for 20 years.
Wow.
And the cure for onliness, targeted specifically to Black men and women actually, but the cure for onliness is self-awareness and self-actualization.
All right.
We have to be willing to look at our own inner narratives that we have about ourselves, how we feel, what we think, the perceptions that we have about the world around us. And it isn't until we change those inner narratives that our exterior world will change. So once again, as Black men, you obviously, if you turn on the television, what are you going to see? Black men being killed by police. I mean, there's so much negativity. That's why a lot of Black men it's almost like you just want to give up because we're tired. We're so frustrated by what the media is bombarding us with. Now, in no way do I want to deny the fact that police brutality is very real, right? Okay, we know the reality, the challenges that Black men face. But see, what I'm suggesting to all Black men is that we have within us the capacity to create extraordinary lives. Despite racism, despite all the external negatives, we as Black men can transform our lives if we're willing to do the inner work. And so what I do is I help coach men through that process. I help them recognize how, cultural conditioning keeps us stuck and trapped.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier about, your primary target or your demographic is female. Well, it's extremely difficult for men, especially Black men, to have conversations about intimacy and vulnerability and sensitivity because we've been culturally conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be tough. We're supposed We're supposed to man up. We aren't supposed to feel. We aren't supposed to express how we feel. Well, I'm shattering that conversation and saying, man,
I
look,
love that.
It's time for us to understand who we really are. And the process of curing the onliness is for us to do our inner work.
I love it. You are mirroring what I'm doing in my female demographics. And so often the women will say, oh, Jewel, I wish what you're doing here, I had this for my son, my father, my husband, my boyfriend. I wish there was something a vehicle for men to understand the power of doing the inner work and creating another language and another perception and owning their worth. Then we know it's a process. We know that deprogramming and detoxing and shattering those stereotypes is not something you can do one time at a conference or one time at the altar or one book. It is a continuum, learning how to embrace the notion that better days can happen. I know so many people right now, even if it wasn't a COVID, we're still always dealing with the ravages of society, illnesses, taking care of parents, raising your children, going through a divorce, not to mention all the other things of racism and COVID, but just to live and to understand your own inherent power to make wiser choices, to let go, to visualize, to pray, to journal, to sit in a circle and feel in a trusted circle that you could share your story and then change your narrative, as you said, to go from being a victim to a victor. And of course, that's the cliche, but then I believe people like you and myself are able to help people cross that bridge to go from feeling like a victim to feeling victorious and being resilient. I am excited to meet you, Coach Michael. And isn't it ironic we have the same last name? But like I said, there were so many people that responded to my inquiry on Facebook, and it just let me know how important it is for people to tell their story. And I asked so many people that responded, would they be willing to come into my Zoom room? And you said yes, and I'm so honored by that. Would you like to share, in our brief time together, a couple of the stereotypes that you are helping Black men or helping the society, our communities, our institutions to shatter and get rid of those stereotypes? I think I know what some of them are, but I want to hear from a male perspective.
Well, number one, and this is one of the most important, I like to think of them as illusions because they appear to be real in the media, but they aren't real.
It's
but
not
unfortunately,
real.
too many times as Black men, we accept these. And the book was targeted specifically to Black men to help them recognize, again, whether or not they're acting consistent with these stereotypes. And so sometimes it's just a matter of bringing awareness to them, that they can go, oh yeah, I can see how that has impacted my life. Now, I've actually had more white people read the book than Black people.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of white people say, look, we're trying to get a deeper understanding and we're trying to learn, so for me, I'm an optimist. That's the lens through which I see the world. And so
me too.
The optimistic part of me says, this is amazing that we're having these conversations now at the depth that we're having them.
Yes.
So yes, there are challenges. Yes, racism is still an issue, but there's an opening, I think, that we haven't had with this whole George Floyd thing. There's a new opening. There's a new shift in consciousness for white people and for Black people. So The number one illusion that I mentioned, or the first illusion that I mentioned, is the illusion that Black men are an endangered species.
Oh my God, yes.
Now, we've had comedians do skits about, you know, Black men being an endangered species. I happened to overhear a conversation with Robert Ory, the basketball player, who got real emotional about sharing how afraid he was for his son
Yes.
because of the police. And I get that. I empathize with that. I feel that. But see, the problem is, as Black men, if we have this inner narrative that says we're an endangered species, then we live our lives in fear.
That's right.
We shouldn't live our lives in fear, okay? Now, there's a distinction to be made between being cautious and being fearful. So yes, we should be cautious. Yes, we should recognize the obstacles and the adversities that are out there, but we shouldn't have a fear-filled spirit.
I
Because
agree.
I'm a firm believer in that we're energetic beings, and what we put out there, we attract to us.
Exactly. Yes.
So if we have a fearful spirit, we're going to attract things to be afraid of. So if we shift our conversation, our inner dialogue about who we are, and recognize that yes, there are challenges, but we are in no way as a group endangered.
We don't want to reinforce that. I believe that I felt the same way when I would talk on issues of racism and how Black men feel. I just did not want to say that my son, that my husband is an endangered species. I didn't want to reinforce that. I didn't want to put a magnifying glass on that. And I like what you're saying is that, yes, I'm aware. Yes, I'm concerned, but I don't want to put my energy in that direction. So yes, I agree with you. What would be another stereotype?
And another stereotype is that there's this illusion that Black men can't be monogamous.
Very good.
That Black men aren't capable of creating loving, intimate, connected, emotionally healthy relationships. And so we're obviously impacted by culture. And so when you look at rap culture as an example, where there's so much objectification of women and this whole idea that they promote this I'm a player type attitude, you know, that's a cultural thing. But the truth is, every man wants to be loved. Every man wants to be loved. Now, sometimes we don't have the emotional tools to truly create those types of relationships and that connection. See, because in our culture, men have been taught that we have three primary responsibilities: procreate, provide, and protect. Okay? But what society didn't teach us was how to connect.
Come on.
And what men want more than anything, whether they will admit it or not, is connection. It's a human need. We want to feel connected. Well, it's almost impossible to do that if you aren't connected to your emotions.
Absolutely. I'm loving everything that you're saying. I am just right there with you. And I'm just wondering if you could just speak to the men that'll be watching this, to the men that are hurting right now, to the men that feel misunderstood, men who've gone through rejection, men who feel like they are tired of wearing the mask of a Black Panther, like I'm Superman, I can do it all, I can conquer all, but yet I feel like I'm failing in my marriage or failing in my income, failing, especially during this climate of people losing their jobs, losing their businesses, losing their homes. What would you say to those men that are listening? Because I know several men that are in my circle that are striving to be the best father that they could be, that are saying, you know, I'm looking for my queen, but I just feel like I can't trust. Men that are saying, I'm tired of acting like I'm strong, but I really don't have a safe place to land, to have that conversation. What would you say to them?
Well, I believe the three most difficult words for any man to say is I need help. Okay. So first of all, I want to give every man the permission to be willing to say, I need help. And there's no shame in that.
Yes.
It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you weak. it actually is the greatest show of strength you will ever exhibit. So your willingness to first and foremost simply say to yourself, I need help. I can't carry this load anymore. And know that there are men out there who will support you in that choice to say, I need help. Now, it is extremely difficult for us as Black men to be that vulnerable. It is extremely difficult because, once again, we have been conditioned to believe that we have to protect ourselves at all costs. And when we look at all the external things that are happening, like police brutality, there's a reason why we should have our guards up sometimes.
Yes.
But ultimately, we have to be willing to let those walls down. We have to be willing to connect. And so for all the men who may be watching this, they must understand that the first step is simply saying, I need help. And don't be afraid to say that, because as soon as we move to that place of I need help and surrender, transformation can begin.
Now, Coach Michael, when you were going through your dark time of homelessness, sleeping in your car, foreclosure, marriage gone, depression, when did you begin to sense a paradigm shift in your thinking? What was your lowest point and you realized, no, I can't do this? What allowed you to have the light come through? Did you hear something? Did you see something? Did somebody speak into your life? Do you remember a turning point?
Oh, absolutely. I received a miracle. It was an absolute miracle. I was sitting up late one night because I was too depressed to sleep. I'm sitting at the edge of my bed, looking across the room at my bookshelf. And as I looked at the books on my bookshelf, and there were a lot of books, trust me. As I looked at those books, I happened to notice that every book on my bookshelf had something to do with getting rich or making money. And as I looked at those books, this question just popped in my head. And it was this: Michael, what if you took all the energy and effort you've used in trying to get rich and simply figure out how to be happy?
Come on.
That single, simple question literally saved and changed my life in an instant. I can never explain it in words, but something in me shifted, right? And all of a sudden, I had this amazing clarity. My depression lifted, and I intuitively knew that somehow I was going to get my life, put my life back together, and it was going to become extraordinary. I just knew it by that simple question. And as a result of asking that question, I stopped reading books on getting rich and making money, and I started reading books on psychology and philosophy and spirituality and metaphysics and personal development. I got heavily involved with, the motivational speaker Anthony Robbins.
Yes.
Yeah, I did the hot walking on hot coals barefoot thing, So I went on this amazing journey of transformation. And so that question is what led me to gain the courage to, first of all, go to therapy. To say, look.
And see, that was a paradigm shift, because we in our culture focus on that your identity and your value comes from what you have, tangible things that you can measure and hold. And what I'm hearing you say, and what I want my audience to hear you say, to share, is that you started seeking the intangible, the things that you can't hold, the things you can't put in your account, the things you can't put in your garage, the things you can't put on. It's that inner work. And we live in a time where we do have so many tools, so many books. We got TEDx, you got conferences, you've got coaches like yourself and myself. But I think in our culture, we're helping to break the stigma that asking for help and seeking coaching, it's not a sign of failure. It is a sign of strength, a sign of curiosity, a sign that you are seeking to be empowered. And I don't know if you've ever heard that story about this mythology story that the gods had a meeting one day, and they said, now we've got all this power to give to man, but we don't know what to do with it. We don't know what they're going to do with this power. We don't want them to waste it, but we got to give it to them. What do you think we should do? And one god said, well, let's just put it in the deepest part of the ocean, and we'll hide it there until they're ready. They won't look for it. And somebody said, no, one day they'll start exploring the seas, and they'll find it and then they'll misuse it. Another God said, well, let's put it at the highest mountaintop. And another God said, no, because one day they'll be exploring the mountains and they'll find it and they'll misuse it. And finally, another God said, well, let's just put all of man's power, potential, and possibilities, let's hide it inside of themselves because they'll probably never look for it. And unfortunately, there are many people are looking on the outside, looking at the mall, looking at the government, looking at someone else, codependent on someone else to validate them and to tell them who they are. And I know that it is a paradigm shift to begin to say, let me go inside. It may be scary in there. There may be some triggers. There may be some issues of shame or hurt or woundedness, but that is the hero's journey. That is the hero's journey to go after that treasure and fight those dragons. And I'm so glad that you and I have connected because I can see the alignment and the high intention and the example that you are living and your passion to empower men. I'm excited that I can now have a resource that I could direct women to say, okay, well, I'm not the one because I know my assignment. I know what I was born to do and I'm staying in my lane, but I have a husband of 50 years. I have a son and I have a grandson. I have nephews. I have male friends and I care about them and I want them to have the tools and the resources. I want to see them not just grow, but evolve and to have the courage and the curiosity to seek out the tools that you offer. Coach Michael, do you offer retreats or conferences? I know we're in this pandemic right now, and I don't know when people are going to be watching this, and hopefully this will be over soon, but when it is over, what do you offer males that truly are seeking to be empowered and shatter stereotypes?
All of the above. But before I do that, I want to share a quick story real quick because I think it really touches on what you were just mentioning. There's a saying that I absolutely love. If you don't go within, you will always go without.
It's on my wall.
So
it's right there on my wall. It is so true.
So, but I have to share this story. So, as mentioned, I was successful, and it wasn't until I lost everything that I had to start going within.
My God.
So here's another miracle that I experienced. I finally got back on my feet after being homeless, right? So I got an apartment. I couldn't afford to have the electricity turned on yet, but at least I had a place over my head. So the only thing I owned at the time was a small bag of clothes and an air mattress. That's all I owned. And so it's August, it's Houston, Texas, it's 100 degrees, I have no air conditioning, no lights on, and I'm sitting in my apartment on my air mattress. And there's a song by BB and CC Winans called Searching for Love.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard the song.
I love them.
Yeah, beautiful. And in the song, he asked a question. He says, searching for love, has anyone found it? And as I'm listening to this song, I started thinking about my life and how I had everything. And when I had everything, I really wasn't happy. I'm sitting on this air mattress. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm sweating, no electricity. But I realized in that moment, I was happier then than I'd ever been in my life. And I realized that I was experiencing life's ultimate paradox, which is to have absolutely nothing and absolutely everything at the same time.
I love it.
And so what I learned in that moment was that this thing that he was talking about, that he was singing about in that song, that love that he was singing about, I was feeling it in my heart. In that
my
moment.
God, yes. And what I'm understanding too is that you have redefined what happiness is. It's like we've taken on the definition, the meaning, the value of happiness, which is external. And of course, it means something's got to be happening. And so you're sitting on your mattress and nothing was happening, but yet you were happy. And I
And
love that you were able to share that and to distinguish that. What is contentment? It
yeah.
doesn't mean everything is going your way, but there was a sense of contentment that you cannot purchase. Amazing. I love that.
And I had spent all my life looking outside of myself
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
happiness. I thought
yes.
the wife would bring it. I thought the house would bring it, the cars and all of that. But what I learned, again, after losing everything, see, this is how God works sometimes.
Mm.
It was in losing everything that I was able to recognize that all I really needed was the love that was already inside of me.
Yes.
The love of God that was always there. And I just needed to focus and look inside to find it and tap into it. And in that moment, I felt it at a level that I could never put into words. The joy that came, I literally sat there on that air mattress and cried for 20 minutes.
How long ago was that, Coach Michael?
That was 96, I think.
96. And you still remember that. You still
Oh,
remember that moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah.
Never
Beautiful.
forget that moment.
Absolutely beautiful. I am so grateful for you taking the time to sit with me today and share your story. I know this will not be the last time, sir. I know it will not. And when this is over, we're going to have to meet face to face. We're going to have to collaborate
Absolutely.
and do something powerful. I used to do conferences where I would have the men in one room and then I'd be in the other room and I would speak to the women and the male speaker would speak to the men, and then we'd switch up and we would share from our gender perspective things that we could do to improve our relationships, our communication. And it was so powerful. And the young man that I was doing it with, he made his transition. And it was a deep hole, a deep void in my life, you know, trying to find someone that I felt we were comparable and our consciousness and our intention was on the same frequency. So I'm trusting that when this pandemic is over, we'll get in touch. We'll look at some things that we could do to collaborate. I mean, I'm open to that. I don't know how you feel, but I'm certainly open to that, about creating healing and helping people to overcome adversity. I
Mm-hmm.
use this phrase that we're all in the university of adversity, and that we need to sit in the front row and take a lot of notes and not fall asleep and not whine about it, but pay attention so that you can graduate. I don't want to keep going through the same class because I didn't take notes and I didn't apply what I was learning from the coach Michael Taylors and from those that are willing and courageous enough to share their story of resiliency and their story of a paradigm shift in the way they think, their transformation. Thank you so much, Coach Michael Taylor. And as we come to a close, if you have any last comment, if you'd like to share how my audience can reach you, please do so now.
Yeah, and actually, I just launched a week or so ago a summit. It's called the Shattering the Stereotypes Empowerment Summit, specifically for Black men.
Okay.
And it's a free summit. All they have to do is go to shatteringBlackMaleStereotypes.com. I've got Beyonce's dad did a section on the DNA of achievement. I have Dr. Steve Perry, who is the charter school guy that
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Steve Perry. So it's a 7-part series for Black men who are ready to start shattering the stereotypes to transform their lives. And again, shatteringBlackMaleStereotypes.com, a powerful resource. There's podcasts, there's courses, there's books.
Wow.
It's a powerful resource specifically for Black men to support them in changing their mindset and living extraordinary lives.
When's this going to be, Coach Michael?
It's already live. You just go on and it's a no cost. Just go to the website, enter your information. You'll get instant access to the summit.
Okay. And please share that website once again.
It's shatteringBlackMaleStereotypes.com.
Okay, excellent. Yes, I am so excited and so grateful that we made this divine connection. God bless you in all that you do. And may you continue to bless and empower and equip Black men. Okay, what does that say?
Black men rock.
Black men rock. I love that. Well, I would like for you also to share with your circle of influence for the females in your life that you have met a resource named Jewel Diamond Taylor. And my organization is called Women on the Grow. Our website is womenonthegrow.org. And I offer counseling and books, conferences, and retreats also. So I would love to connect. I would love for us to just collaborate and connect these dots and just continue doing the work. May you be blessed in all of your endeavors. Thank you so much, Coach Michael Taylor.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Appreciate you.
Stay in the light.
Oh, yeah.